I flew 18 hours to watch my sister get married. 18 hours in a middle seat, barely sleeping, eating bad airplane food, all because I told myself this was the moment everything would finally change between us. I believed, truly believed, that showing up would prove something, that it would matter. But the moment I stepped through those venue doors, my mother grabbed my father's arm, and they both walked toward me with a look I had never seen before. Not surprise, not joy, something cold. My father spoke first. "You need to leave," he said. "You weren't invited." I stood there holding a wrapped gift while strangers in formal clothes walked right past me, laughing, taking photos, completely unaware that I was being erased from my own family's biggest day. If you enjoy dramatic and emotional real-life stories like this one, make sure you subscribe to Francisko's stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss what comes next. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this story doesn't start at the venue. It starts a long time before that. I grew up the middle child in a family of 3. My older brother David, me, and my younger sister Mara. From the outside, we probably looked like a normal family. Sunday dinners, holidays together, the kind of photos on the wall that make everything look fine. But families have a way of showing you who they really are when no one else is watching. My parents had always had a soft spot for Mara. I understood it when we were kids. She was the youngest, the only girl. I told myself it was natural, but as the years passed, I started seeing it for what it really was. It wasn't just love. It was favoritism so deep that it had its own rules. Mara never had to earn anything: grades, curfews, financial help. Whatever she needed, my parents found a way. My brother David never said much about it. He had moved far away in his early 20s and kept his distance. I was the one who stayed close, the one who kept trying. And trying cost me a lot. When I was 24, I lent my father a large amount of money. He had lost his job and they were behind on the mortgage. I didn't hesitate. I handed over everything I had saved from 2 years of working double shifts. He paid me back about a third of it and never mentioned the rest again. I didn't push. I told myself, family doesn't keep score. But family, I would learn, absolutely does keep score. They just don't show you the scoreboard until it benefits them. When Mara announced her engagement 2 years ago, I was genuinely happy for her. Her fiancé, a man named Greg, seemed decent enough, quiet, steady, the kind of man who shows up when he says he will. I liked him, actually. I still do. The wedding planning started almost immediately. My mother called me often in those early months, more than usual, which I noticed but didn't question. She would talk about venues, catering, flower arrangements, dress fittings. I listened. I asked questions. I thought it was her way of including me. Looking back now, those conversations were something else entirely. She would say things like, "The venue deposit is enormous, but it's worth it," and I would agree. She would say, "Mara deserves the best," and I would say, "Yes, of course she does." I didn't realize those conversations had a purpose. I didn't see that I was being softened up. About 8 months before the wedding, my mother asked me directly if I would contribute financially. She said the wedding was going to be expensive and that the family needed to pull together. I said I could help with something reasonable. I named a number. A generous number, honestly. She said thank you and moved on. What I didn't know was that my name was being attached to far more than what I had agreed to, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The months passed. I kept waiting for details about the wedding, a date confirmation, a venue address, an invitation. I was living in another country by this point. I had taken a job abroad about 3 years earlier, which my mother had made very clear she disapproved of. She saw it as abandonment. I saw it as survival. The two of us had never agreed on that. Weeks went by without an invitation arriving. I sent my mother a message asking for the details so I could book my flights early. She replied with the date and a city. Nothing else, no invitation, no hotel recommendation, no, "We can't wait to see you." I told myself she was busy. I booked my flights anyway. I bought a beautiful gift, a set of handcrafted items I knew Mara had mentioned wanting years ago. I wrapped it carefully. I packed my best suit. I was excited, genuinely, because somewhere inside me, that child who just wanted his family to love him was still alive and still hoping. The flight was brutal. 2 connections, 1 long delay, a middle seat for most of it. I arrived in the city exhausted but determined. I checked into a hotel I had booked myself, at my own expense, because no one had offered any other arrangement. I showered, I put on my suit. I looked at myself in the mirror and felt something close to hope. I took a taxi to the venue. It was a beautiful place. Old building, stone walls, flowers everywhere. Guests were arriving in their finest clothes. Music was drifting out from inside. I stepped out of the taxi, gift in hand, and walked toward the entrance feeling like maybe, just maybe, this was the day things would be different. And then I saw my mother. She was standing near the entrance with my father, speaking to someone. She turned and saw me. The expression on her face didn't warm up the way you'd expect when you see a family member after months apart. It went the other way. She said something to my father. He straightened up. They both walked toward me, cutting through the small crowd near the door. I smiled. I started to say hello. My father put his hand up. "Stop," he said. My mother looked me in the eye and said very quietly, "You weren't invited. You need to go." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because my brain genuinely couldn't process what was happening. "What?" I said. "This isn't the time," my mother said. "Please don't make a scene." "I'm not making a scene," I said, still keeping my voice low. "I flew 18 hours. What is happening right now?" My father stepped slightly forward. "We didn't send you an invitation. If you didn't receive one, you should have confirmed before coming." I stood there, and I felt the world tilt a little. "You gave me the date," I said to my mother. "You gave me the city." She didn't answer that. She just looked at me with an expression I can only describe as practiced patience, like she had rehearsed this moment. "Does Mara know I'm here?" I asked. Neither of them answered. People were walking past us, guests glancing over, sensing something was wrong, then politely looking away. I was standing there in my suit, holding a wrapped gift, being told to leave my sister's wedding. I thought about pushing past them. I thought about calling out to Mara. I thought about so many things in those few seconds. But I looked at my father's face, and then my mother's, and I understood something clearly. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a decision, a deliberate one, and I was not going to beg. I set the gift down on a small table near the entrance. I straightened my jacket. I looked at my mother and I said, "Okay." Just that. Okay. And I walked back out to the street. I stood on the pavement outside that beautiful venue for a few minutes. The music was louder now. Someone inside laughed at something. A car pulled up and more guests climbed out, happy and dressed up and completely untouched by what had just happened 10 feet away. I called a taxi. I went back to my hotel. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my suit, and I stared at the wall. "I want to be honest with you." I cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The way you cry when something finally confirms what you've been trying not to believe for years. I had spent my adult life making excuses for my family, telling myself the distance between us was circumstantial, that my mother's coldness was just her way, that my father's silence didn't mean indifference, that Mara not calling wasn't intentional. But sitting on that hotel bed, I stopped making excuses. The next morning, I changed my flights and flew home. I didn't send any messages. I didn't try to call Mara. I had nothing to say that wouldn't come out wrong. I went back to my life, my apartment, my job, my routines. I focused on work. I exercised more than usual. I called a friend and told him what happened. He was furious on my behalf. I appreciated that more than I showed him. Days passed. About a week, maybe 10 days. I'd almost found a kind of numb peace with it. Then my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Maybe I still wanted an explanation. Maybe I wanted an apology. Maybe I just wasn't done yet. "Hello," I said. "There's a problem," she said. No greeting, no acknowledgement of anything that had happened. Just, "There's a problem." "What problem?" I asked. She took a breath. "The wedding bills. They're more than we expected. There's a balance with the venue and the catering company. It's significant." I waited. "How much?" I said. She said the number without hesitating. $38,000. I was quiet for a long moment. Then I said, "And why are you telling me this?" "Because," she said, and her voice had that tone, that particular tone she used when she was presenting something unreasonable as obvious. "Your name is on the contracts." And there it was. I felt cold. Completely calm and completely cold. "My name is on the contract," I repeated. "The venue required a guarantor. We used your name. We thought it would be easier since you had agreed to help with costs." "I agreed to help with a specific amount," I said. "An amount I told you clearly. I never agreed to be a financial guarantor for anything." "These things are complicated," she said. "We needed someone with a stable income. You were the logical choice." The logical choice. I remember those words exactly. I thought about everything then, about how she had called me so often during the planning, about how she had kept mentioning costs, kept talking about what things were worth, kept asking if I agreed that Mara deserved the best, about how she had never sent a formal invitation, about how she had made sure I didn't show up so I couldn't see what was being done in my name, so I couldn't ask questions or raise objections. They had planned to use me from the beginning, and when everything went wrong with the bills, suddenly I existed again. "I'm not paying that," I said. Her voice shifted. "You have to. Your name is on the contract. If you don't pay, they will come after you legally." "Then let me tell you something," I said. "About 2 months ago, I contacted a lawyer. I had some concerns about the way my name was being used in discussions around this wedding. My lawyer sent a certified letter to both the venue and the catering company informing them that I had not authorized use of my name or signature as a guarantor for any contracts, and that any documents bearing my name had been submitted without my knowledge or consent." Silence. I continued. "My lawyer also filed a formal notice with the relevant Consumer Protection Office documenting potential identity fraud and unauthorized financial obligation. Everything is on record. The venue and the catering company both received that documentation before the wedding took place." My mother said nothing. "So when you say my name is on the contract," I said, "that's correct. But when those companies try to enforce it, they will find that I disputed and formally denied authorization well before the event occurred. The liability doesn't fall on me. It falls on whoever submitted my name without permission." I heard her breathing change. "You did this before the wedding?" she said. Her voice was different now, smaller. "I did," I said. "I wasn't sure what was happening, but I wasn't comfortable. So I protected myself." "Do you have any idea what this means?" she said, and now there was panic underneath her words. "Do you know what this does to us? The companies are going to sue. Greg's family is already upset about the costs. If this comes out, if people find out what happened—" "I'm not sure what you want me to say," I said. "We're your family," she said, and there it was. The card, the last card. "You told me to leave my sister's wedding," I said. "You planned to use my name to finance it, and now you're calling me because you need something again." She started to speak. I let her say a few sentences. Then I said, "Mom, I hope the wedding was beautiful. I genuinely hope Mara is happy. I wish Greg and her a good life together. I mean that." She stopped talking. "But I'm not going to be used anymore," I said. "Not by you, not by anyone. I want you to understand that clearly. Not because I'm angry, not because I want to hurt anyone, but because I have, finally, after a very long time, decided that I matter too." She didn't have a response to that. "Sort out the bills," I said. "Talk to David, talk to Greg's family, work it out between yourselves. That's not my responsibility." And I ended the call. I put my phone down on the table, and I sat very still. Here's what I want you to understand. I wasn't happy in that moment. People sometimes imagine that moments of standing up for yourself feel triumphant. Like a movie scene where the music swells and you walk away in slow motion. It didn't feel like that. It felt sad, deeply sad. Because I wasn't just standing up to people who had wronged me. I was standing up to my family. To the version of my family I had carried in my imagination for decades. The version where my mother was proud of me, where my father said the right things, where my sister and I were close. I was letting that version die. And grief is grief, regardless of who or what causes it. I did speak to a therapist a few weeks later. That was the right decision. Some things need a professional, and I'm not too proud to admit that. My mother called twice more in the following weeks. I let those calls go to voicemail. The messages were variations of the same theme: consequences, family obligation, what people would think. She never apologized, not once. My brother David called me eventually. He had heard what happened. He was surprisingly gentle about it. He said he wasn't shocked, which told me more about my family than he probably intended. He said he was sorry I had gone through it. I believed him. I don't know exactly what happened with the bills. I know the legal situation became complicated for my parents. I know Greg's family was not pleased. Beyond that, I haven't followed it closely. I have enough to manage in my own life. Mara never called me. I spent a long time turning that over in my mind. Did she know what happened at the entrance? Did she know our parents sent me away? Did she know her wedding was being financed under my name? I don't have those answers. Maybe one day I'll be ready to ask her directly. Maybe she'll reach out first. Maybe neither will happen. All of those outcomes are possible, and I've made a kind of peace with the uncertainty. What I know is this: I showed up. I tried. I flew 18 hours with a wrapped gift and a heart full of complicated hope, and I tried. That part is mine. No one can take that away from me. There's something I've been thinking about a lot since all of this happened. It's about the stories we tell ourselves about our families. We hold on to them because they're familiar, because they connect us to who we were before we understood the world. Because the alternative, accepting that the people who were supposed to love us unconditionally were sometimes careless with that responsibility, is a very hard thing to sit with. But carrying a false story doesn't protect you. It just makes you easier to use. The moment I stopped pretending that my family's behavior was something other than what it was, I stopped being their resource. I became a person, my own person, with limits and worth, and the right to be treated accordingly. I'm not going to tell you I've figured everything out. I still have hard days. I still sometimes pick up my phone to call my mother about something ordinary and then remember. The shape of that absence is strange and heavy, but I am not who I was when I stepped off that plane, and whatever comes next, I will face it as someone who finally chose himself. If you've been in a situation where family took advantage of your loyalty, I want you to know that choosing your own dignity is not betrayal. It is not cruelty. It is not selfishness. It is the most necessary thing you will ever do. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you or resonated with something in your own life, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Francisko's Stories for more, and take care of yourself out there, because someone has to.